Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the title actually is Rebuilding After the Fire and what no one prepared us for. So, today we have a group called VK Engineering, and we'll obviously introduce you guys shortly. But I just want to welcome everyone to the Altadena Rebuild Exchange. This podcast was created for Eaton Fire survivors and our Eaton Fire Altadena community. And of course, Palisades. We don't want to leave out Palisades to bring real clarity to a process that feels overwhelming and confusing. Rebuilding after the fire isn't just about construction. It's about navigating laws, permits, engineering requirements, insurance, and decisions that can affect your family for decades. Too many people are being forced to learn this the hard way through delays, extra costs, and mistakes that could have been avoided with the right information. In this series, we sit down with trusted professionals, engineers, architects, builders, inspectors, adjusters, and community leaders to break down what you actually need to know in plain language. No sales pitch, no fluffs, just a real guidance to help us rebuild smarter, safer, and with confidence. Today's episode focuses on one of the biggest bottlenecks in Altadena right now, dealing with foundations, drainage, and navigating LA County Public Works process. We're joined by experts who are in the field every day and see firsthand what's holding projects up and what homeowners can do to avoid costly delays. If you're rebuilding and planning to rebuild or helping someone who is, this episode is for you. Let's get onto it and rebuild together in a stronger and positive way. So a quick intro, I'll let you guys introduce yourself as well. Today we have VK Engineering Inc., who is a local engineering firm company that's been around for over 40 years, if not more, with multiple projects that they have done and are working on in Eaton and not just and Palisades, and not just now. They've been doing this prior to the fire. I believe the first one they mentioned was that Glendale fire 30 years ago that burned over 30 homes, and they did 15 of them. So they did more than half of that project. And not just that, they've done the Malibu fires 5-6 years ago, Oakland and Bay Area in the late 90s, earthquake as well, reconstructing all the homes there in Northridge, up the road in 1994. So they have a lot of experience, and not just in a disaster mode in helping victims rebuild and get their lives back together. They also work on many other projects, civil, structural, public, from multi-unit homes, multi-family homes, multi-floor, even high-rises. So they have a great, extensive experience. So let's get right into it. Actually, no, let's give a chance and introduce Vic Kachadurian, who's the owner of VK Engineering, and John, who's a civil engineer. And they have an extensive team, pretty much like a one-stop shop. They also have in-house architect, a surveyor, and a drafter, over 20 people staff. So I'll go ahead and let VK introduce himself. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, good morning. My
Good
name
morning.
is Vic Kachadurian. I'm a licensed structural engineer. I've been licensed for 40 years, and my specialty is structural design and construction from the ground up, remodels or fire and earthquake damage repair, whatever the case may be. I've been involved in multiple fire events, as Kev mentioned, and we are also actively involved in rebuilding Eaton Fire homes. And like I said, I deal with all types of structures: commercial, residential, small, large, medium, whatever the case may be. And we coordinate with architects and contractors to do the most efficient and economical reconstruction possible.
Yes.
Because everyone has to stick within their budgets, especially with fire rebuilds. Thanks.
Yes. John?
I assist Weekend on some of the projects at the office, also help coordinate the various disciplines at the office and manage the various elements of any project that we are currently handling, whether it's a fire rebuild, new construction, commercial, residential, industrial, as may come. VK has a wide range of clients, from developers to investors to contractors to homeowners that have been serviced for the last 40 years. And we love what we do and we're good at it. So there you go.
Yes, these, I'm trying to pick all the rough in the diamond, rough out of how they say it. Anyways,
Diamonds in the rough.
diamonds in the rough experts. So, as you've seen in the past podcasts and in the future, I'm trying to get the best of the best to give our victims and our community, our Altadenians, the best advice, support that they need. And we're doing this all for educational purposes. So, just remember that. So, if you know someone that needs, they're confused, they're lost, they're in depression, which we've been hearing because they don't have insurance, they're almost gonna foreclose their home and lose everything. Share this video for them. Not just this video, just group, because we can help each other, because we're all one after all. Okay, let's get right into it with the questions. We'll start off with the structural engineering aspect that involves foundation, framing, seismic, fire resilience designs, which we are facing with Altadena. So the first question: when does a rebuild trigger a full code upgrade versus like for like replacement?
Yes, so typically, if a house is completely destroyed and being rebuilt by code, by definition, it has to be rebuilt to full code, especially the structural part.
Mhm.
So there is no running away from the full code for complete fire rebuilds. Now, if it's a partial fire damage and part of the house is standing, then the situation changes. If you have less than 50% of the house damaged,
Okay.
then you don't need to do a full code upgrade for the entire house. You only need to do a code upgrade on the part that you're rebuilding, and the trigger amount is 50%.
Okay.
So that's the difference. For full damages, full fire destruction situations require full code
Okay.
rebuilds.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Okay. So that's good to know. I didn't know that. So as I said, this is going to be very beneficial for all of us, even the experts or builders in all realms. So next question: how are post-fire soil conditions affecting the foundation design and cost?
Well,
We can
I'll
go ahead.
let Jonathan answer that because he knows better.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Okay, so all our projects have to have foundations and interact with the site situation. So Los Angeles, the hillsides of Eaton have a whole variety of soil types, from bedrock to natural soils to fills to recently placed fills to historic fills or natural formations. And therefore, since that is a science in itself, we associate ourselves with geotechnical engineers, which are soils and geology engineers, to give us the criteria for the design of the foundation system. So it could be regular foundations if the soil conditions are average or typical, and core in certain cases it could require deepened foundations in the form of piles, structural slabs, and could involve removal and recompaction of the soil because it has been weakened due to the age of the building. Some of the buildings in the Eaton area are 100 years old, and they were built on with no control over the site situation. Therefore, what one would think that would be a natural occurrence where remove and replace the foundation is not as straightforward as that. So in most cases, we engage and we have geotechnical engineers to provide us site-specific geology, site-specific soil conditions, as well as seismic data for us to use in our structural design.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you touched up on a lot of information there. The next question was part of the certified fill and what actually means when a homeowner is being required for a over excavated pad. So all that has to be compacted, I'm guessing. And then I guess you can answer that question about over certified fill and over excavation of
Yes, and
the
the
pad.
reason why that happens is because when the Army Corps came to remove the foundations, they just
Mhm.
removed them without consideration of how they were leaving the site. Sometimes they removed more, sometimes they didn't remove enough. And
Yes.
therefore, the codes currently insist that you have to have a 4 to 5 foot layer of
Mhm.
uniform material under your house in order
Got it.
to prevent a differential settlement, which is one part of the house settling differently than the other part of the house.
Got it. Got it.
And therefore, the only mechanism for those sites is to remove the top layer of 4 feet.
Hmm.
We compact it under the observation of the structural engineer, the
Hmm.
geotechnical engineer, who will then issue a report stating what bearing capacity we can have for the design of the residence.
Okay. So yeah, foundation is the most important part of the building. You know, as a wise man says, building on a rock you're gonna have a resilient home rather than building on a sand that could be washed away with the storm. So foundation is very important. That's something we all need to really make sure is done the safest and best expert way. We can cut corners there for sure, or else like the next question is or else it's going to be cost the homeowner lots of money to try to redesign if they try to cut corners there, which the house can settle and much more. So okay, let's go to the next question. What fire resistant structures systems are worth the extra cost? So one is, many of us know, is ICF, concrete, which you guys have a lot of experience in. Steel framing, or home proofing in other methods that are non-combustible material. If you can give us some systems that you guys think, if you were building your own house, how would you build it? What type? And if you can explain to the homeowners.
If I may pitch in, obviously, the systems you mentioned are all fire resistant, but they have different cost implications. I think the all concrete is the most expensive, in my opinion. The structural steel is less costly, but still more expensive than wood. In the long term, it may end up paying for itself
Hmm.
through lower insurance premiums, better fire safety for the future,
Yes.
and more resilient structures. So, and by steel, I have to qualify myself. There are different types of steel you can do. The most efficient one is using metal studs for a single family home rather than the actual structural steel, which is
Okay.
used in commercial buildings more
Okay. I
often.
see. I see. Even the exterior metal studs.
Yes, exterior metal studs. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it's steel. Steel is you guys is John, do you have any quick input on that?
No, we can capture it perfectly.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's move on. Next one. How can homeowners design for both wildfire resistant and earthquake without blowing the budget? Steel, stud is
Yes.
also,
Okay.
the
First of all, earthquake resistance has to be done in every project. It's in the code. You can't avoid it.
yes.
You can't avoid it. Earthquake resistance is built into the code. It's done. So the only variable each item is in the fire resistance, whether it makes sense or not still allows timber construction in fire prone areas. It doesn't make sense, but it's allowed by code as long as you follow the code requirements for timber construction and provide fire sprinklers. But you can always overstep the code and provide more features than protects your house
Mhm.
in case of fire event.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like complete out of the possibilities
Yeah.
to use timber construction.
Okay. Okay, so
So
yeah,
as long as you have the proper input and professional advice, you can still do timber construction.
yeah, and it's all about filling the void inside the cavities, which is important with a non-combustible material, and then having the sidings that are non-combustible, and most important, vents, because a lot of fires it wouldn't have burned if it didn't go through the vents or the
Yes.
crawl space or the
Yes,
exit.
the these minor issues, minor elements, oftentimes end up being very important. So care should be taken, and that is where professionals that are guiding you come in and can guide you properly in that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you.
Some of
What
the
are
other measures that were implemented or can be implemented are exterior deluge systems also. In other words, that will automatically start a curtain of water on any and all of your openings. We have worked with a couple of projects where besides an indoor sprinkler system, we put an
Mhm,
outdoor sprinkler system as well.
mhm.
Also, there are vents that are controlled electrically that will shut off all the open vents. So, for especially for the ones that want to rebuild out of wood, which is seemingly still the least expensive way, supposedly, those would be some additional features that can be contemplated in order to help minimize or reduce the potential of a future fire.
Yes.
The area is still going to be adjacent to a national forest. Forest maintenance has been neglected for, I don't know, ever in
Mhm.
California because of
Yes.
budgets. And therefore, the likelihood that a fire springs back again, like it did in Malibu for the last 30 years, every 10 years, they have a fire there. And because of poor maintenance of slopes, existing slopes.
What are the most common reasons structural plans get kicked back by the LA County?
Yes, they would be kicked out if the engineering isn't done the way the code requires, because have to comply with today's code, and many engineers are not up to speed on the code. So it's important that whatever engineer you work with be aware of the codes and follow the code. For example, the code changed in January 1st of 2026, so they need to follow the new code in anything that's turned in after the first of this year. And you need to know all the different segments of the code related to structural design and home design and make sure you follow them, because non-compliance will trigger an immediate kickback from the code.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. What documents should a homeowner make sure their architect provides to speed up with permitting, especially? And what duties does everyone play in monitoring and communicating? Most important.
Yes,
And
I
like,
believe. Yes, I believe in this department that your engineer and architect should take the lead and make sure all the required documents. If any documents that are identified, your engineer or professionals will inform you, and if they need it from the homeowner, they will obtain it.
okay,
So you need to have the right engineer and architect who knows the system and gets the proper documents.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
one is to have a survey of the property, because oftentimes what you think is your property line may not end up being your actual property line. And it's a survey, it's only a survey that can provide you that.
hmm hmm
So doing a survey is important if you're doing a fire rebuild.
yes, yes. So surveys number one on the list from doing anything else, knowing your
Yes,
property line, so
yes.
you don't encroach and you don't have to do mess up and tear down what you build because you're a foot too close to the neighbor, to the offset or whatever. So yeah, that would be very
And
costly.
also a survey is something that can, lack of a survey can stop you if you don't do it during plan check, and then you need it during, and then you will ultimately need it during construction. And if you don't have it, it'll bring you to a stop until you do it before you can proceed. So it's best if it's done ahead of time.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all this information is very, very important for homeowners to, do the right steps from the beginning. Because if you do the wrong steps, especially from the beginning when it comes to survey, to planning, to foundation, your whole project is just going to go south. And that will be a nightmare to try to fix and repair, and very costly to a point where you might not even be able to finish the project, or expected date of the project could increase another 2 to 3 years. So probably won't be able to move back in until 2030, unfortunately, or more. God forbid, So that's very important. Very important. Jonathan, do you have anything to add on to it?
No, weekend was thorough, especially in the Altadena area where some of these properties are 100 years old. And at that time, they would not be very picky about side yard setbacks and encroachments. It's very common to have a wall 3 feet off your property, or your neighbor parking on your property because he thought it was, his, without
Hmm.
a clear delineation of the physical property based upon the assessor's map and your
Hmm.
title policy report, which should give you all the easements that are on your property. You
Yes.
are keenly aware of what easements do to your property. In your particular case,
Yes.
the
Yes.
county has 2,000 square feet of your property designated for a storm drain easement and an access road. Uh,
Hmm.
this is extreme, but a lot of properties have a 5 foot sewer easement, maybe a 10 foot power easement.
Hmm. Hmm.
And besides easements, there are also some physical features like trees, oaks and bays and sycamores that create other constraints on the redesign of the property, because they tend to limit what part of your property you can use.
Hmm.
Because previously that tree might have been 1 inch from your house
Hmm.
and it's branched over your property. But right now, with the new codes and the new forestry guidelines, you need to
Hmm.
stay out of the drip line. You need to stay out of the root system of the tree.
Yeah.
You have to design foundations that can allow for the growth of the tree without damaging it, so that it doesn't,
Wow.
survives. So there
Oh,
are
okay.
a lot of issues that are not, they're taken for granted. You can look at it. You have a tree. Oh, okay.
Oh,
The
okay.
tree can become more expensive to deal with at the end of the day than anything else you have. Right now that Vic and I are dealing with oak trees in
Yeah.
both in also neighboring cities where they are
Mhm.
protected trees, and they can create some additional constraints to the project.
Yes, yes, yeah, because I did hear from someone on Facebook. By the way, if you guys aren't followers of our Facebook page, Altadena Rebuild Exchange, please do so. There's a lot of information there you can also get. But one of the followers mentioned that they made her do the footing 5 feet deep, and she's only has a one-story building. So when I heard that, I'm like, "Are you on a hillside?" She's like, "No, I'm not on a hillside." So maybe that's why. Is that why? To I don't know. Is that something?
Well, it could be a combination of many things, but it could be a tree that they needed to avoid, or some other feature that required that they deepen the foundation. And like I mentioned before, soil types, the setbacks, slopes, all of these become constraints that are only defined by the geotechnical engineer, who gives us the proper guidelines for that. We
Okay.
just cannot go and willy-nilly plan a foundation system because the existing one was functioning properly, or they thought they were functioning
So it can't be the standard 3 foot stem
properly.
wall with a footing. It has to be much upgraded. That's something I guess to look into. All right, let's move on. Next, we're gonna jump on some civil engineering questions that include drainage, grading, stormwater easements, like John mentioned, and public works. Of course, this all goes all together, hand to hand. So the first question: why are some Altadena rebuild getting delayed by drainage and public works?
Can you want me to
Jonathan,
take
you
this
wanna
question? Yes.
If not, we can skip it.
I can answer. I can give a guideline at least. Part of it is that because of the age of the neighborhood and the way the tracks were developed 100 years ago, the county standards have changed over the last 100 years. And what they considered a safe design for the time 100 years ago is no longer. And therefore, most of the inlets and structures that the county has are undersized for the tributary areas that they are responsible for. And so some of the homes happen to be right at the entrance of or the inlet to a storm drain system. And, it can create conditions where the fire, the burning of the wood, how it affected the topsoil, some natural features also, like existing landslides, can change the dynamics of how you handle your grading. You're no longer dealing with your site issues that we mentioned before, where you're removing and recompacting and controlling what you can control, constraints that are added to yours. For example, some of the lots, let's put it this way, out of the 9,000 lots in Altadena, half are uphill, half are downhill. In other words, if you're driving on Altadena or any of the streets that are running east-west, homes are north of it and homes are south of it. The homes that are north drain naturally to the street. The homes that are to the south of the street drain to the neighbor. Well, about 20 years ago, the county decided that you cannot do cross-lot drainage. In other words, you cannot let your roof drains dump to your neighbors. So therefore, what they're making most of these homes do now is put sump pumps, unless they have a storm drain easement to run the roof water, because otherwise you're concentrating it by building driveways, roofs, patios, covered areas that increase their impervious surfaces, therefore making the concentration of water in a half-inch rain, three-quarter-inch rain, 1-inch rain much higher, and therefore we have been involved with over 25 sump pump designs for the Altadena area right now for downhill properties. Unless they have, by luck or by natural features, the ability to drain to the south and go to the lower streets. So those are some of the issues that are coming up that, would normally not be of concern. So I'm building my home and I go, oh, okay, now you have to deal with one clearance from storm drain or public works, and that can become a project in itself.
Yes, yeah. And we don't want to build something that's going to cause a problem to our neighbors or community down below, because we're already going through trauma and trying to recover from this disaster. We don't want to create more trauma and anxiety to our neighbors below, for sure. So yeah, that's very important to engineer that with the proper drainage calculations and slopes and degrees of the slope. So, okay, next question. What changes after the fire? Actually, no. I already said that. Let me X that off. Sorry. Okay. So you already touched upon this, John. So the question is, how do existing easements like the county inlets, like you mentioned, and access affect the rebuilding design? So obviously, you can't block access, you can build over it. So you kind of touched upon it, but if you can quickly, shortly, just mention, cover that real quick.
That's why your survey is important, knowing the kind of terrain you have downhill from your property. In some cases, the county and the developer, when they were making the maps, were carving out sewer and storm drain easements. And if you're lucky that you have one or your property has access to one, then you can have an automatic way to discharge the rainwater in a safe manner via a non-erosive devices, which means you not let it flow over the slope, but you put it in a pipe that takes it to the curb, and then from the curb it goes to the storm drain system for the county. See, the county is responsible for the maintenance of storm drainage, not only for the sites, but also for the entire streets.
Yes.
There are also some additional requirements like low impact development and stormwater management during construction that kick in, especially if you are building in the rainy season, where you need to make sure that you're not dumping mud onto the street, tracking it with trucks that are coming in and out of your property, because you could be subject to fines as well. So these can be like unnecessary burdens where one would say, let me start building, and it's not just as straightforward as that. So there's multiple layers to this onion that needs to be dealt with, and that's what we do here, we try to give a comprehensive solution and not say somebody else will worry about it, or it's the contractor's problem, or it's let them figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, definitely. That's very important. That's funny how you say multiple layers of onion. I never heard that before. I like that. Okay. Uh next question is again about failing inlets and drainage systems that are old and not properly calculated either by the developer that built that track in the past. Do you want to touch upon that, or should we go to the next question because we did talk about it a little bit?
Well, you touched on it. My point is that, yes, 100 years ago, development standards were not as critically reviewed by the county. When someone was proposing a tract, all you had to do was meet with the minimum lot size.
Mhm.
It didn't matter what configuration, whether it had a street or not, whether it was paved or not. So all of those, especially some of the older homes that were like hunting cabins for people living in South Pasadena, let's say. And these were like secondary structures, not very important. They were like 5, 6, 800, 900, 1,000 square foot. Sometimes they didn't even have foundations. And so they were not really considered as, you know, structures. Over
Yeah.
the years, obviously, the real estate value going up and these homes becoming more relevant to due to the proximity to the city and the growth of the community, they became, they're no longer $10,000 bungalows up in the woods, let's say. They
Yes.
became part of the city structure. And
Yes.
therefore, the infrastructure was still old. That hasn't changed. And that's part of the challenge right now. The county is
Yes.
trying to upgrade storm drain systems, water systems, drainage systems, and all of these directly impact the construction of your home.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, the definitely does. So, uh, whoever's watching now, all you, especially in a burn scar area, we are going to have a lot of issues with overruns, with erosion because our vegetation is all burnt. So there's nothing rooting the ground to the earth. So everything is just sliding down like a mudslide, like you mentioned. So this aspect of drainage and water storm control is, I think, number two after doing the survey. So you got to make sure you properly do that with your engineer, or else it's going to be very, very costly with many aspects, like Jonathan said. Even small aspects like during the rainy season, all the mud getting run off down your neighbor or on the street, which you could possibly be fined for. Trucks going in and out, that's something we all got to consider, especially in every construction, because in the beginning, it's all going to be dirt. So there isn't going to be any hardscape. Setting up in the driveway wherever the trucks are going to go in and out, there's special grates that can be installed. So when the trucks are going in and out, most of that mud falls in those grates and gets vibrated out from your tire treads. So that's something, very simple stuff, but storm drain and runoffs and all that could be very damaging. So you got to really consider a well planned out plan for that. All right, next question. What is LA County Public Works usually looking for in a drain plan? And what you think is causing delays if the drainage plan isn't thought out completely in every angle?
It varies from site to site. There is no one answer. It depends really on where the property is, what its geographical and topographical features are.
Hmm.
But Weekend was spot on. Once you have your topo survey, it will then outline for you and the design team what
Hmm.
constraints might happen.
Hmm.
Not all sites have issues. They have some same issues, but their relevance to the overall project vary from, let's say, 1% to possibly 5%, depending on uh, is the site specific criteria. So not all sites have problems, but all have issues that they need to tackle in the design so that roof and side drainage is properly controlled at the end
Hmm.
of it. That's a decision between the homeowner choosing what type of home they want, the architect who's designing the home and the roof, and the civil engineer as well as the structural engineer, as they design the roof system to control the drainage that comes out from both the roofs, which
And
are
the
the
gutters.
impervious surfaces, as well as driveways, concrete features, other elements that are being introduced back into the design of the property, and the overall hydrology of the site that controls how a solution has. There's no one solution. There's multiple ways to design for that. And you want redundant systems, something that doesn't fail, that doesn't depend also on, for example, some pumps that can fail during blackouts. So if your system, the only system that you have is a sump pump, we recommend sometimes that you have a generator that kicks in if you lose power during a rainstorm, because even having a dual system sump pump will not function because of the volume of water from a big rain. So
Yes.
there's a lot of features, and
Yes.
this warrants a totally separate session if you want to do some case studies in case you're interested in the future.
Another thing, if you guys are interested, I'm putting together maybe a panel talk, a crosstalk with maybe 6 to 8 different people in all different departments to have a panel, and we can all discuss all this and try to see if we can maybe in the midst of talking come out with a better plan, because we always have to innovate. We always have to think of ways to do things better. That's part of evolution and civilization. We can't continue doing things the way it was done in the Flintstone days. There's so much that we can improve with, especially with the technology we have now, like robotics and stuff like that. But that's a different story. We can talk about that, like you said, down the line. All right. So next question: how can homeowner be proactive resolving drainage issues before submitting plans to avoid months of back and forth? So you touch upon this, but this question is more for plans and questions and clarifications, so we don't have a setback in our project completion, not completion, start date. What should the homeowners try to do this before, like a separate permit before their main house full set permit? Or what do you think is the best strategic way to go about this?
Well, the county does not necessarily issue permits for drainage prior to a construction of a house.
But you do have to have it to get the
No,
permits.
it should be part of your complete package, and it gets reviewed by different departments, but they are concurrent. And that's part of the weakness, because each department handles their backlog differently. So navigating through that is critical. And now that the county has decided to go away from paper submittals, it's all on the portal. So all projects are at the mercy of the performance of the portal. And sometimes the portal is down, sometimes it's not properly managed by the county. I was talking to a planner, regional. Funny anecdote. His name was Tyler, and apparently the planning department's website portal manager company is called Tyler. So anytime something goes wrong, they blame Tyler, and he gets blamed because his name is Tyler also.
Okay.
Funny, and he was referring to some documents getting lost in the portal because of the volume of documents that are being submitted and the inadequacy that the portal has, which is, capacity also. It sometimes crashes. The city of LA portal crashes. The ones that the large municipalities that have a heavier volume, especially with the influx of 9,000 homes in the Eaton Canyon and Pasadena and the Pacific Palisades, where this created a larger volume of projects being submitted. And that's why there are delays, because, not waiting in line to get in line, but also having someone process it without you having any input in it. So you turn in documents, and then you hope that the clerk sends the right documents to the right department. So it's not that you can guide it yourself. It's one thing for you to decide to drive from Glendale to Pasadena, let's say. You have 3 choices. You can take the 2, the 134, or Colorado. But if you're not given that choice and you're told to take Colorado all the time, So your drive becomes half an hour instead of 14 minutes because you have 120 streetlights on the way. So
Yes.
I liken it to a channel of where things are basically at the mercy of a portal management system.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but we can talk longer about.
Yeah. You actually, it's funny. You're talking about the next question, which what is causing the bottleneck in the LA County Public Works reviews?
It's not only public works is a multidiscipline department. We can talk about the structural part where the county is overwhelmed right now. They're using outside consultants, and there's no consistency in review. We see that with other cities right now because they are overwhelmed and they can't get the proper staffing. So they hire anyone, and then you don't get the same level, consistent level. It doesn't matter what it is, but the consistency is what's important.
Yes.
And the fact that it's a multidiscipline also multi-level of bureaucracy. You have the storm drain system, you have public works, the streets, you have the grading division, you have the geology division, you have the trash division, you have the building division, you have the planning division. So all of these have to and fire department, the forestry, the arborists, you name it. Everybody has, their teeth into the system, and they don't always function in a linear way. I mean, you can get stuck because one review that needs to be a precedent doesn't happen. So anything subsequent to that gets delayed.
Yeah. So we can, if you want to input on that as well, we'd love to hear your feedback because I know you have some stuff that you see in everyday cases, every project cases. It seems like from what John is saying, there's a communication break. It's not 100% organized because of the third party that is kind of not fully committed like LA County is because it's all overall being watched, regulated by many agencies, including the federal agency that's pushing, like the Trump administration, that's pushing for a fast turnaround of everything and is changing laws. Been like the amount of days and hours you can work in a day and in a week. Even they passed a law that you can work on Sundays as well. So what do you think the problem of delays and miscommunications and emails and questions being lost or not answered?
Well, in my opinion, the biggest bottleneck in the review process seems to be the building and safety department because they have the most responsibility as far as proportionality goes in the review. And one good option these days is something that LA County came up with. It's called self-certifying plans. That is, engineers, after vetting, are deemed to be good enough or experienced enough to do self-certify their plans. That means they commit that they confirm that their plans are meet the code, and then they don't go through the county review of the building and safety, and they assume the responsibility of the plan check. That is a significant,
Change.
speeding of the plan check process that is available to homeowners. The only thing is you need to work with an engineer who is on the self-certified approved list. And there's quite a few of them. We are in it, but others are also. And if you do that, then it will help you move things along significantly.
Okay. Yeah. No, when I heard that, it's great, but it's very important you have the right person doing that, and there's no foul play or false certifications or anything like that. So everything the homeowner should investigate because after all, they're going to be living in it, and they're going to eventually enjoy and unfortunately could also suffer. So we don't want any more suffering that we already went through with this disaster. So, okay, thank you, Viken. So how long should the homeowners realistically expect the plan check to take right now? I know there's some numbers that LA County is throwing out there. I think it's like 90 days. or I don't know what it is, but I got to check on that, double check. But what is the realistic amount of time? Of course, every project property difference than one another. Some could be like for like, some can be no issue of grading or anything because it's on a flat elevation. So what is the minimum you would say, Vikan or John?
I believe if you go with the self-certified rule option, 90
Hmm.
days is an achievable, realistic,
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I want to add that this is not 90 days after regional planning, because when our self certification bypasses the plan check department, but other departments still have to opine, whether it's regional planning, public works, bidding, drainage, all of these. We are not self certifying.
It
90
still has
days,
to go.
a
Yeah.
good number for a very, let's say, standard lots, if there's such a thing. We have been successful in Palisades, for example. We have several projects that are under construction right now that took maybe about 3.5 to 4 months, because the city of LA does not have a regional planning review. As long as you're not exceeding the guidelines of the code, you don't go through a separate review. It's done by
Mm.
the state plan checker who reviews zoning and building.
Hmm.
Whereas in county, you first have to get the regional planning to approve your site. Then you are allowed to go to the building department for zoning and building check.
Got it.
So that's why there's another layer to the onion. Now that you like the onion, uh,
I like onion soup too. The way the French make it.
the other layer is so it varies. Some projects can be 90 days, some projects can be 180 or maybe even longer, depending on the various departments that are commenting on the various components of the project. But
Okay.
all of this should be added to the initial phase of the project, which is getting the surveys, getting the source reports, getting a design completed. So the design team permit process cannot start until all of the elements of the project are assembled in a cohesive, comprehensive package
Mm.
that
Okay.
needs to be submitted in then, and then that time should start ticking in. So it depends also, like you said, some homeowners are not well organized. So they're going to consultants that are doing it piecemeal. So you want to make sure that you have a team that is cohesive, is working with all its elements, so that the end result can be uh, uh, as smoothly reviewed by the
Yes.
county sees tons of projects every day, and you don't want to overwhelm them, but you also want to give them the information in a way where they can review it in the easiest and fastest manner.
Okay, so from what I understand is with the self-certification, you still have to go through the process with the building safety and all that. So you can't just start engineering and giving it to the homeowner and saying, go ahead and build. It has to go and there's a process. So through that process, what you would say have you run into where it's like a dead comment from the public works, which, that is causing some setbacks and delays. Jonathan?
Well, there's no standard rule. I touched upon one component, which is the inconsistency in the county with third party reviewers. There's like 5 or 6 companies that review plans for the county right now.
Okay.
It's off the draw on who you get. Second, the actual physical project itself creates a different paradigm every time you look at it. You can have 2 lots next to each other, and one lot will have more issues than the other one. So it's defining the components and the elements, and then notifying the homeowner that this project could have a higher level of review, let's say, or a different level of review because of ABC, whatever it may be.
Okay.
So properly defining, and this is where I like to use this expression, is you have to define the problem well so that you can solve it. If you
Okay.
don't define it, then you can keep turning around and around like a hamster in a cage, around and not reach anywhere.
Okay. So far what I get is it's the county is overall on top of it, but the third party is where the ball is being slipped out of the hands and lost in the web or in the process. So On other than that, what other issues do you think that can cause that could cause a problem other than the third party?
If I may, I mean, if you're going through the project process, it's you're dealing with different plan check people and parties, and it's like a throwing the dice type of thing. You may get a tough plan check person, you may get a more lenient plan check person.
Hmm.
So it's on a case by case basis. So as I recommended earlier, the best bet in going through the plan check fastest is to go the self-certified route.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's get to the, I guess, one of the closing questions, and we'll try to wrap this up fairly soon. So this is for you guys. If you were building your own home in Altadena right now, what would you do differently than what a lot of your, let's say, homeowners are doing now?
Jonathan should answer that.
John,
Well, there has been a discussion, and I liken it to the one I had in Malibu about 30 years ago, where I had a client who walked in to me and he said, I want a home that will not burn. This was on Latigo Canyon. I then, at that time, designed a home that was out of masonry and concrete. And Latigo Canyon burned, and every home on the canyon burned except that home.
Mhm.
So, it's not traditional, but if you want something concrete, very rarely burns. It has to be extremely intense even to cause damage to it. So if you are able to figure out a way where cost notwithstanding, because obviously concrete construction is a little bit more expensive than wood construction, you might want to consider something that is more permanent, more vermin resistant, more drought resistant, more impact resistant, more, you name it, resistant. And you can accommodate that 10 to 15 to 20% delta on traditional construction. Then, a concrete home maybe or a steel home might be a better alternative to a regular wood frame building. Now, because you're building for permanence, right now, whoever is building right now is not building for the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. He's building something that he would probably prefer not to burn again in his lifetime, at least.
Yeah, of course.
So, therefore, concrete construction initially is thought to be the domain of high rises, bridges, industrial structures, hardened structures. But, it does not, the code does not preclude you from using it.
Mhm.
And it achieves more higher fire resistivity. It achieves better insulation, gives you a more temperature controlled building if you design it properly. And so there are a lot of advantages to it. So that's what I would do if I were rebuilding my own home.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Actually, the interview I did yesterday was with a company called Phoenix Development, and they do class A
Class
type,
A.
built type buildings where they use concrete, ICF, and then the roof is also non-combustible. They have a patented long span joists and beams and rafters with a non-combustible roof. So all around, it's class 1A.
Class A.
Yeah, class A construction. So yeah, okay, Vic, you're pretty much you were saying it's steel, so you would go with steel rather than concrete or anything else.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Steel,
all right,
I think steel is a good level compromise
okay.
between concrete and wood.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just do a recap with three things that we should leave this what we got from this meeting with two experts in the field in engineering with the fire disasters experience. Number one, survey. Do your survey. That's very important. Know your property lines, easements, and after knowing all that, the other thing that is hand to hand is do your drainage properly depending on the survey and the topography of the slope of that plot. And then number two is construct a very, very level, strong pad, which is required. Like Jonathan said, up to 5 feet of compaction and all that. And then foundation. Foundation, that's where it all starts. If you don't have a strong foundation, then I don't think you're gonna the house is gonna last very long, especially when it comes to earthquake or floods. Even if you do wood, it's because we can't all afford steel, and concrete is very more expensive to us than wood, unfortunately. So most of us, we have no other choice to do wood. So if you do wood, John said, use auto vents, auto sprinklers, and there's sprinklers not just for inside, outside, and even, there's some sprinklers that do auto in front of window openings or any type of openings. So there's that. And we already talked about swamp pump. That's something that goes with the drainage. And then having a backup generator, a solar battery, a solar panel, those are all good. So I want to say thank you to both you guys. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I'm sure you guys have on your schedule board over 100 projects that you're managing at once. So I really appreciate your time doing this episode. And to all that joined, actually not joined, that are watching. I haven't done live stream yet, which I might do in the future. Altadena Rebuild Exchange group on Facebook. And then be part of this community. This is going to be very, very helpful. We're all going to bounce ideas back and forth. So you don't have to scratch your head and get false information from people that some of them, unfortunately, don't know what they're talking about. So let's basically rebuild together in a stronger, smarter way. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And this is going to be on YouTube and Spotify as well. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Biken. Thank you, John.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll for sure. By the way, viewers, if you have any questions, please ask, and we might do part 2 with any questions that still hasn't been answered. Thank you very much. Have a good day. God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.